Well, hello. Wow, what a great audience. Early morning for me, about 9 o'clock. Well, I'm so excited to launch the NaaS program. It's been years in the work, and we are really, really excited. So let's just start it. So, as you know, we've seen this huge disruption in AI, and what we're seeing is many industries are changing now and will change. And disruption and change absolutely creates a whole new normal. And we're seeing the same thing with the AR, VR space. All new headsets are coming in. Eventually, we're going to see smart glasses. And those smart glasses are going to change much for our experiences. And this disruption is what we need to take into effect when we talk about networks. Because what we're seeing is that digital transformation is the same thing. We're digitizing all our workflows, and it expects a network to behave very differently than what we used to. And I think this is really important to start to understand that the networks of the past, the last 20, 30 years, is a radically different network going forward because it's going to be about software-defined and virtualized and automated, and AI will be part of this also. So what we're seeing is NaaS is the change. It's the accelerator to this new network. And it's predominantly as a service model. And as a service is critical because it's a utility. You buy a utility, you go to utility, you get your sewage, your water, your electricity. And that utility updates itself, delivers the best quality of what's expected from their subscribers. And we have to think the same way, and that's really what as a service means. And we're seeing this in all kinds of cloud technologies of IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. The other thing, cloud native is very much built into this from multi-tenancy and all of the DevOps and all of that capabilities. And elasticity is critical, not only within the provider, but across the provider. And then again, it goes on. Automation, access from anywhere. We know that's what's very critical with COVID. Security and network coming together, that's never been done before. So while NaaS has been around for a decade, that NaaS is not this NaaS. This is a very different NaaS, all geared towards cloud and all the things I talked about. So what we have done at MEF is we've defined NaaS, and the big takeaway, it's about delivering, for 20 plus years, we delivered that underlay, carrier Ethernet, interconnected the globe. It's an $80 billion market, very high speeds. But now we're seeing this advent of application assurance, to make sure, and that's SD-WAN and slicing to make sure applications perform correctly across the network. And now cybersecurity is being top of mind. There's so many threats coming in, so many threat actors that everybody's concerned about cybersecurity. In the end, I'll talk about what we're doing here. And everybody wants to go to cloud. It's a multi-cloud. It's not just one cloud. It's clouds of all sorts. And finally, at the end of the day, we think certification is a very critical aspect to making this all to come together. But of course, none of this is possible without automation. Automation of connecting the ecosystem, testing your subscribers, is a fundamentally must-have. It's how cloud operates today. To be cloud-like, you have to have that fully automated. The people are removed, it's machines are doing the work. So we have, at MEF, over the last 6+ years I've been the CTO, not only did we do carrier Ethernet and roll that to $80 billion market, but we've been doing all of these things, and we have 100+ standards, published standards, including all the automation APIs, and 65 active projects. And you'll see this in our blueprint I'll announce at the end. And there's tremendous work. Not only did we go from carrier Ethernet, but we also described how to do an IP service, which is going to be used for a lot of SD-WAN scenarios. How do we then go up further into SD-WAN, application assurance, and we did standardization. How do we go up into cybersecurity? We did the first SASE standard, Zero Trust Framework standard, and so on. And then finally, we're on the multi-cloud. We're now doing MEC-IAC and many other areas of multi-cloud connectivity. And all of this is surrounded by automation and certification, which I'll talk about. So our NaaS blueprint, if you download it, you'll see there's 4 major themes. And all those themes, you'll see that there's use cases. We actually describe the use cases. And in the use cases, we actually describe all of the standards that are relevant from MEF, but not only MEF. As you'll see, we see this NaaS, not only a MEF NaaS, but a MEF industry NaaS, incorporating other SDOs, other bodies, working with us, collaborating to provide this baseline. So this blueprint, much like what open source did to drive innovation, MEF and other partners are trying to drive a baseline that then allows us to basically go together and make this market happen, because it's a necessity if we want to get into the world of enabling digital transformational use cases to have the network of the future. The other thing is, in our blueprint, we just don't talk about the technical aspects. We know that all of our members are going to need support in the way of marketing collateral, helping them to then rebrand on their own. They need technical support and so on. So it's not just the building blocks of technical and automation and so on, but it is also all of that help that all the marketing needs to basically rebrand your NaaS and take some baseline from MEF and our partners. So we're going to deliver on this too. And the first part of the blueprint doesn't have this. It only has the technical parts. But the second part, we'll be adding that in 2024. Now, I think if you think about NaaS and what the world's changing to, the edge is coming in predominantly very, very fast. We know this for digital transformational use cases needs low latency capabilities from their networks. And from the edges, we know many providers have POPs all over the world, close to their customers. From there, I believe, and what I'm seeing and talking, is the first mile is now becoming an internet loop. More likely DIA, but could be a broadband. And you hit the nearest edge closest to you, which is normally in your city, and it's one hop away. And then you hit the edge, and from that edge, you pick up all kinds of network transformational services. Not only you do get the underlying connectivity, obviously, but you also get the SD-WAN, the cybersecurity, and then access to all kinds of multi-clouds. Some of the clouds are right there. They're distributed clouds sitting right at the POP or co-located right next to the edge. And you're getting very low latency capabilities and the ability to get all these digital transformation use cases from partners from that service provider. And then further, what we're seeing, and I'll just walk through this, further what we're seeing is a middle mile has appeared, that no more does the application users go to the internet to get to these clouds. They actually go through this business network, and we've seen this middle mile network show up, which is a business network, that then finally connects to the rest of the clouds, all kinds of SaaS clouds. Because in reality, every service is moving to a cloud-like subscription model, and that we've seen is what the movement is, IT to the cloud, and all kinds of services delivered from cloud. So I think the takeaway is it's not the internet's going to get us to clouds. It's not like a big backbone with MPLS or dedicated circuits that we need for private networks. It's the first mile that gets us to the edge. At the edge, we're into this business network that connects us to everywhere with all kinds of services, underlays, overlays, and so on. The other part is that we think of NaaS, as we thought about in the future, or the past, is that basically we always think of, well, there's a user network interface at the subscriber, and that site is really the responsibility of the IT team, but I'm only going to deliver to that user network interface as a provider. And that kind of is going away, because at the end of the day, the experience is a frictionless experience from the device, application, or user all the way to the cloud service. And that NaaS has to be, we have to be thinking NaaS of not just in the wide area, not in, in the POPs and connecting to clouds and all so on, but how do we bring NaaS into the enterprise? How do we deliver private 5G as part of being that NaaS experience? How do we do 5G as part of that NaaS experience? How do we manage that so that it's an end-to-end model of an experience? Because that's really what subscribers want. So I think this is a very important aspect of NaaS. And people are calling enterprise NaaS, but it's all NaaS. It's coming together to deliver this end-to-end experience. The other part that people have not thought about, but we're seeing a lot of noise on this Chimera project, which is really how does applications and developers influence and interact with the network from machines or applications and not people. And this is a little bit of a complicated diagram, but the first part, think of this as what we've been doing with all our wired services of quoting, ordering, provisioning. So the first part, some buyer has to say, hey, I want my developers or my applications to utilize the network and to be able to interact with the network. But to do that, you just can't do it. You have to buy the services. You have to get quotes, decide what regions of the world, what can they interact with, various use cases. And so all of that top level of this diagram is what we've been doing with Sonata and Cantata and Interlude and all that stuff. But the bottom line is where now the developer uses an intent, very simple API for very use case driven that hits to the actual provider's gateway that then converts it into how they have to provision internally and how it goes across the ecosystem. So a lot of diagrams here, but this is the essence of what Chimera is trying to do with 5G and GSMA and all of their service providers. And it's really a different way of looking at NaaS. We always think of NaaS as being the service offering, but it's also the ability for applications and developers to interact in a programmable way that we've never seen before. And it's complex, but yet it's doable, and there's a lot of innovation happening in this area. So MEF is also investing heavily into this area, and you'll see more about this coming up. Finally, we're seeing that clouds are coming together. There's the idea that no one's going to be a cloud is not a reality. Everybody's going to be a cloud. Every service is going to be a cloud. And those clouds are coming together to bond super clouds. And those super clouds are interconnecting. You saw, I think, a Google or GCP's announcement connecting to all the other hyperscalers. The clouds from SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, to NaaS are all coming together in super clouds, connected at very high speed capabilities between themselves. They have smart contracts for billing and settlement and blockchain and so on. But more importantly, automation is critical. They have to be fully automated in an open ecosystem that has tons and great interoperability in a federated viewpoint with standards. And this is what I'm going to cover in the last 7 minutes of my my session here, is that MEF has been building this automation framework, architecture, and now all of these points you see are reference points for, we have APIs, and I'll talk about in a second. APIs are in production, 135 providers on the journey, quite a number already in production, others developing it, and I think this is critical. So I won't get through the architecture because I won't have enough time, but you can just think about the business layer on the top and the operational layer at the bottom, orchestration layer, and then you go between partners on the right, all your downstream partners to deliver your services, and on the left, it's your customers. And that could be customers, not only the IT pro consuming the services, but developers and applications interacting with that service. So if you think about it, it's not just the fact that we've been talking about the right side ecosystem. MEF has talked about Sonata, bring the ecosystem together. It starts with the left side. The journey starts with the enterprise, saying, I want an experience, a NaaS experience, and whether that be a developer or an IT pro that wants to commission all the resources or provision all the resources for all his users. It starts on the left, and that has to flow all the way to the right, all the ecosystem partners, and go downstream into the stack of all their operational systems and realize that as one big system for that experience. Now, while I talk about that, it's highly complex, and what MEF has done, we're partnering and delivering on this. So on the east-west, we're doing a phenomenal job. In the north-south, we're partnering. I'll show you that in a second. So what we've done in MEF is really important. What we've seen in the east-west direction, try to get everybody in the boat, everybody trying to say, hey, use a common set of APIs to do this, we found it was really challenging. And many people smaller providers had all these manual processes, bigger providers had all these proprietary APIs, and it was causing massive confusion for interoperability to plugging in. no one in all the provider networks could really plug in a seamless way and make everything operate. There was always these bespoke, these different variations, which caused tremendous headaches all over the place. What MEF has done is created this, what Kubernetes and containers have done is build once, deploy anywhere. So invest once, build once, deploy anywhere for any use cases. I'll show you these use cases, not just for buying underlays, but I'll show you some of the other use cases. We've also taken these APIs that we've agreed upon and we built together from the TM Forum 60+ APIs, which are very generic, very good, but very generic, and we matured them to high fidelity, high interoperability, added all of these assets, which I won't have time for, including going through the BRUC, the business requirement use cases, developing the developer guides, the APIs itself, modifying the APIs because there's workflows missing from the business requirement use case, creating guides for a developer, exactly the sequence diagrams, adding an LS API security, creating something that TM Forum didn't do, and I'll show you the product payload, the data model, the schemas for carrier Ethernet, for internet, for edge compute, and so on, a marketplace, a certification program. So all of these assets enable the ecosystem to come together, plug and play, seamless, frictionless, and that's kind of what we've been working on. Tremendous amount of asset, time, money, and resources, and we've gotten there, and we got adoption. So really, at the end of the day, you have to think of these APIs as two things. There's this envelope, the actual API, quote order, and so on, performance fault management, source activation testing, billing and settlement. Those are just APIs. You could do that for billing and selling on pizzas, or you can do that for bandwidth, or edge compute, or power and space. So on the top side, you see on this diagram on the top left, you see this idea of envelopes or payloads. Payloads. The payloads are the actual product service schemas. Every machine has to understand what you're talking about when you want to quote or order. Are you talking about pizzas? And the pizza, is it a deep dip pizza? What are the attributes of pizza? I want, green peppers, onions, salami. Those are all attributes of the pizza that has to be described in machine language. Same thing with Ethernet, same thing with internet, and so on. So this is very important, and MEF has defined this for Ethernet, internet, and now we are having a whole roadmap I'm going to show you on delivering on this top level of these payloads that matches with the already delivered APIs. These are the APIs of the 60+ APIs, reduced them to 20+ APIs, and these APIs are highly mature in production, business side from quote ordering to inventory to then operational to testing performance, fault, provisioning. All of this is in our releases. We just released one in July, I believe. Next one's coming in December, and we do it every 6 months. And it's got adoption, it's got traction, and we're solving that ecosystem. What we also see is that more and more providers, the ecosystem partners, and this NaaS provider are not trying to horizontally integrate everything in their POPs. They're going out to the SASE providers. They're going out to SOCs and emergency response teams. They're going saying, hey, I want to be able to buy your service through a horizontal meet. I don't want to be able to bring in all your stuff, train on my people. Why don't you operate it as a cloud? And I'm going like the supercom. I'm going to interconnect to you. I'm going to put my subscribers through you, and you're going to operate it, keep up to date, and that's the best of breed. And as a retail provider, NaaS provider, I can go get the best of breeds for what my customer wants from many SASE providers, or SD-WAN providers, or compute providers, or MEC providers, and deliver that. So this is a very powerful idea, and this is all capable with the APIs we've come out with and all the payloads that we have to build on top of that for all of these scenarios. So we've also landed with the TM Forum. What we find is we do really, really, really good east-west, I talked about, to the enterprise and to all the ecosystem. And when we go north-south, it's got lots of complexities. And TM Forum has been doing this for 20 years. They have their ODA components, the Open Digital Architecture components. They spent an enormous amount of time with all the CIOs of how do you do that north-south. And since inside the organization, they don't have to get agreement, it's just within their own organization. They don't have to go across the unity to collaborate. The best suited to do that. So we're working with the TM Forum and say, you know what? Our forte is east-west. we'll let you do the north-south, and we'll work together and make this thing all come together in a frictionless environment. And the big takeaway I want you to think about is, while we've done all of this investment for 6 years, many providers want to be able to use these same APIs, quote, order, operational, performance fault, for all kinds of scenarios, not just buying Ethernet or underlays or internet, but they also want to buy power and space, cross-connect, edge compute, and it goes on, resources of all sorts, including SD-WAN, SASE. So they want to be able to buy all of this from a common set of APIs and have different product schema representations on those APIs. This makes life so much easier for everybody, for the IT, for all the operational systems, all the automation systems, and so on. And then finally, all of this has to come together with blockchain, because blockchain is very critical, because if you do all of this, you have to have immutable records of these transactions, because what's happening is the ecosystem has to be elastic. It has to agree on stuff. It can't be static. So when a subscriber says change up or down a resource that then depends on ecosystem partners, the whole ecosystem has to be elastic in nature for resources. And blockchain and the ability of building and settlement and have immutable records means that all of that reconciliation becomes very, very easy and digitized into smart contracts. So we have tremendous work going on here. Go to the CBC, talk to Daniel Barlev, lots of projects happening here, and you'll hear more throughout the week. So I'd like to announce the industry blueprint. You can download it at that site. It's a great blueprint. It's the start of our blueprint that we are then going to narrate. I'll narrate the blueprints. Right now, it's a storyboard in a PDF. I'll narrate that storyboard by the end of the year. And next year, we'll have a full report on this whole blueprint that will be matured a little bit more and have the full narrative and all of that into a full report to distribute to the industry. Unfortunately, it was a big undertaking to try to do it all in this short time. So there's the table of contents. And finally, I'd like to introduce, in the conclusion, the first industry standard, the first industry launch rating, the certification to test whether a service, a SASE service or an SD-WAN service, really works, not to the MEF standards, but basically does during impairments and enterprise buys a WAN, SD-WAN service, does it handle the impairments right? During a SASE or SSE service, does it handle threats right? Does it classify applications that are all encrypted and does heuristics right? Does it handle, like I said, all the threats from malware to evasions, exploits correct? Does it have, does it downgrade for TLS from 1.3 to 1.2? Does it do zero trust for authentication and access control and authorization all correct? And finally, does it comply to MEF conformance? This is the first time in the industry, in the world, that enterprise can go buy a service, have a third-party validated certification that rates everything from not just a pass or fail, but a rating like Moody Bond rating, a AAA, AA. So our goal is to get everybody racing to the top to get the best possible score. And we're doing this by not a one-time cert, but a continuous cert. As much as the vendor or the service provider wants to do this, there's a continuous cert. And I'm proud to say there's 16 leading top technology providers and service providers leading the world are in this beta program, and will launch the GA sometime in 24. Really, really one critical, highly impactful program that's hitting the market coming out here shortly. And so we're very proud of this. So with that, I want to thank you. I'm over time. I've got the hook already. It's buzzing in my pocket. But anyways, I want to thank you for your time, and have a great day. It's going to be a great, great session coming up.